Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for less. And for a limited time, new customers receive their second month free when they sign up and use promo code MONTHFREE by May 31st. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up and call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
You can live out your MasterChef dreams when you find a professional on Angie to tackle your dream kitchen remodel. Connect with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done well. Visit Angie.com. You can do this when you Angie that.
For exclusive podcasts and more, sign up at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, 2 high-profile disappearances put the spotlight on missing indigenous women in the Navajo Nation. Connie Walker is back with a new investigation in the Spotify original podcast, Stolen: Trouble in Sweetwater. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of the These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of The Final Curtain, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca.
And finally, our captain of all things cynical, the author of the City trilogy of novels, host of Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast host, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca.
So, Kevin.
Yeah.
I have to ask, what is coming up on Thursday's show? This is obviously Monday's program.
Yeah, on Thursday, we're going to be talking about the HBO original documentary, The Truth versus Alex Jones.
So, Laura, how are you feeling? I have to ask real quickly before we get into the show. Your giant event is over. We had like 100 or so. I'm just going to round up. People come and see our live show in Exeter. Tons of Crime Writers On fans. Lots of people showed up for us in Exeter, New Hampshire. And then also, was your big event in Exeter Lit Fest a success? How would you categorize it?
It was a big success. I was a little late to our taping tonight because we were having our sort of wrap up Exeter Lit Fest meeting to sort of talk about like debrief after the Lit Fest. And we're looking forward to next year, what we're going to bring back next year, what we're going to tweak a little bit, what our next big event is going to be. So I'm just sort of like finally caught up on sleep and trying to sort of get back into the swing of the rest of my life and actually get out rage walking again.
Have you been elected mayor of Exeter yet? Yes or no?
No, I am unofficial mayor, Rebecca.
Is there a mayor? Is that your governance?
No, there is no mayor. We have a board of select people.
Yeah, we'd have that too.
No, I like my role unofficial mayor better because I get to do the fun things and I don't have to deal with all the people going complaining about like their dump stickers and like the trash bags they don't like in town. You know, I just get to go walk around the downtown like
and complain
the dog
about those
pooper
things,
person and like don't let your dog crap on the sidewalk and all that stuff. And then like do the fun stuff for Lit Fest.
Yeah. So Debbie, I just want to mention one thing about you. You were on fire during our live show.
I know.
Our live show was a very special episode of Crime Writers On. I just want to tell listeners, if you're the kind of person who skips an episode of a podcast because it was taped live, by the way, I'm full disclosure, I am that kind of person. Like whenever one of my favorite podcasts is live, I don't fucking listen to it. Our live episode is so good. You have to listen to it. The energy is so great. And I think what makes it great is Toby Ball, because he was on fire. What happened to you? Was it because you were missing the basketball? You were just like really, really, really amped up and good in that episode. What was going on?
I don't know.
Is it because Deborah was watching you?
Was nervous energy being in front of a whole bunch of people, or I don't know. It's just different doing it in a room, right? Just has a totally different feel. So
was it something you ate at the Sawbelly before you came?
I don't know. I did have a couple drinks beforehand. I don't think that was it though.
No, you had a drink there too, I think.
I got an NA beer.
Oh, NA beer.
Yeah. I had one cider while we were taping. It was very, very good. I love the Word Barn, man. What a great venue that is.
Yeah, it's a cool place.
So, so good. I will say, though, the venue is also where they live, and they have so many events there. And I was asking Ben, I was like, don't you ever want to be like I just want to watch SVU tonight. I don't want to fucking do this event right now. And he was like, yeah.
It's tough working at home.
Nailed it.
It is.
All right. Well, we have a lot to talk about on this episode. So, Kevin, I think we should get to it. What do you think?
I think we should.
Let's go ahead and drop that first clip right now. This is one that I think is going to inspire some discussion. So let's get that done. Leading off.
It was around 3:30 in the morning, and her mother's truck had just started up. She watched it pull out of the yard, through the metal gate, and off down the red dirt road. Why would her mom be leaving in the middle of the night?
In June 2021, Ella Mae Begay vanished from her Sweetwater, Arizona home in the middle of the night. Preston Henry Tolth admitted to the tribal police he stole the 62-year-old's truck and beat her. But Ella Mae's family pressured him to say where on the Navajo reservation he left her.
I'd rather have a cop to find her because I just know my safety, because I don't know what you guys are doing.
And safety?
Look, I'm sorry about that, and, I was worried about myself, to be honest.
A year later, 38-year-old Kristina Carrillo went missing from the Navajo Nation in New Mexico. But as host Connie Walker investigates her disappearance, she uncovers an unlikely connection between the two cases.
Do you feel like people are just getting away with murder? And
Yeah, they are.
Bernadine says when police can't follow through on every case and murders go unsolved, it leads to retaliations, and the cycle keeps repeating itself.
In the final season of Stolen, Trouble in Sweetwater, Walker looks at two missing person cases from the largest Indian reservation in the U.S. and their potential link. In addition to her journalism on the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous people, the Peabody Award-winning host also focuses on the systemic issues that make solving these cases so difficult. Spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about plot points from Stolen, Trouble in Sweetwater. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. So, Kevin,
You're coming to me first?
I am.
That never happens.
I know. I've been given that note, so I am coming to you first.
Okay.
Kevin Flynn, what do we owe Connie Walker in this genre?
Nothing. No, we owe her a real debt. I mean, true crime and this movement about missing and murdered Indigenous people, we really are indebted to Connie Walker, especially from her days missing and murdered with the CBC. She presented what might have been sort of like a standard true crime fare and then really opened up that issue to mainstream audience by, you think you're getting a true crime case, but it's actually a story there's a bigger issue wrapped around the crime. So Spotify's decision to cancel Stolen isn't a reflection of Connie, but it's very sad because I felt like, they really could support this kind of journalism. But somebody needs to get Connie on their staff immediately because she was, one of a small number of journalists that really made this an issue, put it in the forefront instead of it being sort of a back page of the newspaper kind of thing. And so we really should recognize if she never does anything else again, that's what we should remember her for. But that means that she's got to do something again. So somebody please hire Connie Walker.
I look at her and see the elders in my life who live alone in our communities. The thought of someone coming to their door in the middle of the night shook me. It seemed almost unfathomable. The mystery of her disappearance, the lack of answers, compelled me to come here to try to find out what happened to Ella Mae Begay.
I mean, you mentioned the Peabody in the intro, but she also won a Pulitzer.
A DuPont Award, yeah.
Yeah, and it's very, very difficult for me to imagine, even if you were losing money on a thing, to get rid of the thing that won your outlet both a Pulitzer and a Peabody and all these other journalism awards. I should mention also, who else I heard in the credits? Max Green. You know who Max Green is? He worked on I'm Not a Monster with Josh Baker. I mean, this is like a heavyweight team working on this show. It's really an incredible show. And, even if it has to be picked up in another iteration, if it can't be stolen, just like it couldn't be missing and murdered, I really do hope it goes elsewhere. So, Toby, the opening of this podcast is very cinematic, right? We hear about the disappearance as kind of a TikTok. How do you think that works in the show?
I thought it was great. It's generally kind of scary. And, the thing starts with a woman by herself in this extremely, extremely rural house on the Navajo reservation, having her door kicked in and then basically like hiding while this person is in her house. And then the person leaves the house and goes next door to where her mother lives. And that's sort of when Ella Mae disappears.
Suddenly, Joanne was startled by a loud sound coming from the front door. It sounded like someone was trying to get in. She ran to hide a moment before hearing her door being kicked open. Then, a man walked into her house.
I thought this was a really striking opening. I think a lot more so than like most podcasts we listen to, which isn't really a diss on them. I just think this is just super, super effective. And I don't know. I just found myself, from about sentence 2, just being drawn into the story in a way that often it takes a little while to kind of get going.
What about you, Laura? Because Connie does have this very I describe her reporting style and her narration style and even the way that she speaks, because her narration style really just is her style. It's like hypnotic in a way, but there was a tremendous amount of suspense built into this from like minute 1, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like what I was thinking about with that opening scene is like she wasted no words there. There was no extra fluff in that setup. It got right to the point. We know the stakes are high. It's poignant. It's scary. The description, like certain descriptors that she chose to include, said so much, like how Joanne could hear the soda can opening, the man drinking the soda. But then also right off the bat, we know she calls the police and she waits a long time. So we know this is going to be part of the issue here. And I'm thinking, of course, we've already watched that documentary about the police in the Navajo Nation and the challenges they face. So when I hear that right from the beginning, that she's waiting for the police to arrive and then her mother's truck drives away in the middle of the night, I'm like, okay, this is going to be one of those issues and we're going to see how it plays out. But I think just the way she set it up, I actually went back and re-listened to it and it was just succinct, to the point, enough detail to make you feel like that little tension of like, oh, this is scary. Like, what would I feel like if I was in that situation, being in my house, knowing somebody was in there? And that was terrifying.
Kevin, I want to talk about the style of Connie's reporting. It's different than other things we hear. Connie opens up, and I don't, granted, keep in mind, like, we know how things are produced, right? And we know that there are some conceits in production, but it feels so authentic in these shows that I have to believe a lot of it is that we are learning things along with Connie Walker. Like, it feels like you are riding along for real in her investigative process and her reporting process. And yet she doesn't include all that boring stuff like looking up things in the phone book and like, you know what I mean? Like dialing a million phone calls. But doesn't it feel like the revelations are happening and you are there when the revelations are happening?
Yeah, because she does catch those on tape. I was trying to think of, what is it about Connie's presence? Because she's not what might be called a charismatic or a dynamic kind of reporter. She's not flashy. She's not jumping in with guns blazing in different places. She's very steady. She's just a solid reporter. And she does have this sort of very calm, sophisticated way of just sort of addressing people, just sort of very curious. But she does also get these big things on tape. I'm thinking back like at Surviving St. Michael's where she finds his photograph. She wasn't going through the phone book, but she was going through a bunch of,
we hear enough of it. Yeah.
So when you just like all of a sudden Ellen just stumbles on the fact that, the person shot was in Cheesy's. Well, it's in Melvin. It was actually Ella Mae's son. So you're like, what the fuck is this connection here that comes out of nowhere? So you just kind of come along and discover too. Wait, how many different skulls are apparently around, and is it all the same skull, and everybody just knows a different story? So anyway, you're immersed in her reporting, but it doesn't feel like you're on a joyride.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't feel like she's just revving the engine and taking you around sharp corners to entertain you. You're just in this car going where you need to go.
So Connie says that she was first attracted to this case, Toby, because she'd seen the coverage. She usually covers these marginalized cases, and this one sort of came to her because it had some media coverage. And then she calls out her own biases in the podcast, which is why she ends up pivoting to Kristina's case. But the other thing that we learn about Ella Mae's case is that it's probably solved, right? But Preston isn't charged, despite the fact that he apparently confessed to the police, that he took and then beat and then discarded this elderly woman from her own truck. Now, it occurs to me that in another situation, in another place, that person would have been arrested probably for murder, even without a body. Were you surprised to hear that he was just not charged and let go?
Yes. I assume we'll get back to it, or maybe we won't. Maybe there just isn't an answer to it. But it is strange. I think he says that she was probably dead when he left her on the side of the road. And certainly people in the community think that he's guilty. There's a scene where I guess the aunties are sort of harassing him about having done it.
I told FBI I took the truck and I left her to do that. She doesn't know. And I don't know them. It was dark.
Who else was involved?
I don't know. I don't know people from that part of town.
These women don't seem to be buying what Preston is telling them.
Connie also gets to this point that this is an incredibly difficult jurisdiction to maintain any kind of police presence in. It's the size of Connecticut. Would they say they had like 200 police officers or something? The wait times for calls, which is understandable just because of the amount of territory they have to cover, can be like an hour or more. A lot of these places are fairly remote. They're small settlements or they're single or just a few houses. So it's not like you're in a town situation in some of these situations. So, how that all ties into not holding on to Preston, I'm not really sure, but it seems as though the whole justice system itself is just on the wrong scale for the size of the place and the number of people, I guess, that they have to be administering to. As with any other impoverished community, it brings with it like all these different sort of societal ills, which, again, it keeps police more busy than they would probably be in a different sort of community.
So, Laura, the most justice that Preston got for this case so far that we've heard in the podcast is being outed on Facebook Live.
Yeah.
For what he did, and no justice from the cops so far. What were your thoughts on that?
That was just bizarre to me. But it reminds me, like Toby was saying, you're in these communities where the police force is spread so thin that that's it. Like, I think like there's sections in Vermont like this now, like where I grew up, where there's like really no police. And so people have these like community Facebook groups where they're reporting things that are happening and taking matters into their own hands. But this is like, he's like walking along and these people come up that are involved with this case and just start filming him and interrogating him on Facebook Live. Like, where is she? Tell us where she is. And they find him on the side of the road. They ask him to get into this SUV to go show them where she is. So he's kind of like going along with it, like he wants to help. And then he just like runs away and jumps the fence and escapes.
I'm just gonna let you guys know there's been a dead body right here. And then there's been a dead body in the field over there. And then there was another one over at the chapter house they found, And then check out that canyon over there.
Okay.
They found a couple of years way back, they found a skeleton of a head.
That whole scene was just so symptomatic of what is happening in this area where we don't know why he was released. We don't know what's going on with this case. The people who live there don't know what's going on because there's just not enough law enforcement to keep up with what's happening to investigate. And we hear later, and I think we can get into this, like why in some cases the police don't want to pursue investigations.
Yeah, so Kevin, this should be a solvable case. Absolutely, right?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they find blood on his clothes and he basically says, I left her for dead. But I think the reason that they aren't, able to charge him with murder is they don't have a body, right? And it's hard.
But he said he did it. Doesn't that matter?
But they don't have a body.
Yeah.
Well, but he doesn't know that she was dead.
He doesn't know she's dead.
Just knows, he thinks she's probably dead because he beat her, but
and
he
also
knows.
The defense attorney says, he's like, oh, no, but he doesn't know that. So, I think that's a big piece of evidence that they don't have, but I think they believe eventually they will have that. There's just so much territory to cover that it's really hard. Sometimes it's like trying to just navigate everything we have on Patreon. It just feels like there's so much territory.
It's just like that.
It's like how am I ever going to get through all 500 of these exclusive podcast episodes? We already have another 500 episodes of Crime Writers On.
It's insurmountable.
That's like 1,000 things to listen to.
It's just like that. It's really a lot.
It's
so
really
Kevin,
a lot.
What do we have going on our Patreon right now that we're in the business section of the podcast?
At Patreon.com/Crime Patreon.com.
Connie, by the way, is very proud of you for that transition.
Partners in Crime Media. We have the Crime Writers on After Show. If you listened last week, you know that we had our live show celebrating 500 episodes, 10 years of Crime Writers on. And we were surprised by some of the members of the audience who are longtime listeners who presented us with gifts and all sorts of praise, and we actually continue that in the after show. These are Jeff Brumley and Angela Buster. They solicited questions and comments from some big-time podcast people.
Famous people.
And so we just did is we invited them on our after show, and we talked with them about, we let them ask the other podcasters questions, and the four of us answered them. Other things you can get, though, on Patreon include our Leave It to Bricker podcast, in which Laura Bricker investigates crimes in quaint AF.
Crimes.
Crimes?
All right, investigates mysteries in quaint AF.
Can you imagine if we had Laura investigating crimes? Laura, I have charge for you. Make a show on our Patreon. Just be Payne Lindsay. Just go investigate some fucking crimes on our Patreon.
I will do that,
cool,
Rebecca.
Cool, just do it.
But, I mean, you do mysteries, including The Grange. What the hell is The Grange in Exeter? And what are they up to?
That is exactly what I set out to find. The Grange, they're like the Masons for farmers. I had to go down a dirt road at night to a stranger's house to meet in somebody's living room to find out what was happening. And you can hear all about it on Leave It to Bricker.
We also have Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast. Toby just finished up his discussion on the assassination of Fred Hampton and is getting ready for the next book. And the recording's going to be in May. And the book is called what, Toby?
It's called Among the Bros, a fraternity crime story by Max Marshall.
And among the guests are the aforementioned Jeff Brumley. And who else?
Tony Flanagan, Beth Ritchie, and Elon Green.
Elon Green? Oh, wow. He didn't ask us a question. Like, apparently he doesn't.
He doesn't care.
He doesn't care that
much. He gives zero shit.
He knows all that shit already.
He knows all that
yeah.
shit. So all sorts of great stuff there, and we always want you to sign up for our Crime Writers On newsletter. You get a recap of our reviews, Crime Writers On Behind the Scenes, Pet of the Week, Crime of the Week, Post of the Week, Toby Ball's deep cut recommendations from Amazon, all sorts of cool stuff. Just go to crimewriterson.com, give us your email, and we will sign you right up.
All right, Kevin, does thus end the business section?
Thus ends the business section.
I'm going to go ahead and fade that music out right now. So, Kevin, you thought this show could have benefited from better quality sound design?
Yeah, better quality is always better, and that's why I like to shop at Quince.
Ooh, Quince!
Imagine upgrading your wardrobe with luxury essentials at unbeatable prices. Quince is here to transform the way you shop with a range of high-quality items priced within reach. So all Quince items are priced about 50 to 80% less than similar brands, and they partner directly with top factories. So you know what they do? They cut out the middleman and pass the savings on to us.
Why are you talking about this and not me? This is literally one of my favorite places to shop. Okay. I love Quince.
You know who else loves it? It's Laura Bricker. Laura, tell us about the last thing that you got from Quince.
I got my most favorite new prized possession from Quince. I got this really nice black motorcycle jacket, and I am looking forward to wearing it on my little pink scooter as I drive around Exeter this spring. So far, I've just been wearing it around town, getting many compliments, and it really is buttery soft, real leather. It is fantastic.
Indulge in affordable luxury. Go to quince.com/crime for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns.
Wow.
That's QUINCE.com/crime to get free shipping and 365-day returns. So if it leap year,
that's right.
You're out of luck.
That's right. It's clothes that begin with the letter Q, Alex.
Quince.com/crime.
Crime.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for less. And for a limited time, new customers receive their second month free when they sign up and use promo code MONTHFREE by May 31st. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up and call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
The Angie's List you know and trust is now Angie, and we're so much more than just a list. We still connect you with top local pros and show you ratings and reviews, but now we also let you compare upfront prices on hundreds of projects and book a service instantly. We can even handle the rest of your project from start to finish. So remember, Angie's List is now Angie, and we're here to get your job done right. Get started at Angie.com. That's ANGI, or download the app today.
So, Laura, you and Connie Walker have something in common between your job and her job, except I think she might have to do more of it than you or chooses to do more of it than you. Drive down incredibly scary roads.
Yes.
Farm Road sounds like an incredibly lawless place. And people keep saying to Connie, don't go there. And we've heard this in other podcasts that she makes. And she's just like, yeah, so we decided to go there. And she doesn't make a show of it. It's not performative like, they told me not to go, but I'm going anyway. It's not like that. Because this is just where the people are. So she goes. But like, that seems like a lawless part of town. Would you not agree?
Oh, no, I would totally agree. And I listen to the way she does it. And I feel like that sometimes in my job, too. I'm like driving out somewhere and I'm like, okay, do I keep going or do I stop? And I just kind of slowly keep going. Like Connie Walker slowly keeps going out there. But Farm Road, there are skulls. The police are like, yeah, it's a dumping ground. Somebody else is like, it's meth town. There's gunshots at night. Somebody calls it the Wild West, lots of shooting. And yet there's nothing on the news. And then Connie needs to go there because this is where all the shit goes down at Melvin's house. Melvin's house is someplace I would really not want to go. I mean, Farm Road, I might drive through and leave, but like, it doesn't sound like anything good happens at Melvin's house. It's just a bizarre thing. But what I appreciate about this is that Connie forms relationships with her sources. Her sources open up to her. We start to, because I feel like once we get into the scene of Farm Road, Melvin's house, and then also the field by the canyon, which is even worse than Farm Road, I think, I feel like we're really starting to get really good information about who is involved in different things, what the dynamics are between people, what is the background, and like what's happening there. And it's scary, but I also feel like knowing that the police really didn't have the manpower to investigate, Connie's really getting good information going out there. And especially when she goes to the next place, when she goes to the canyon place, they're talking about where all the bodies are found. And this guy like pulls up in his truck and is like, oh yeah, there was one over there and there's one over there and there's one over there. And you're like, what is happening out there? But I think that really just took this to a whole new level for me.
So Toby, you know, we've talked about the police resources, right? Too few police, too much space. But the other thing that we get to in the podcast, and we hear Connie talking to this cop again and again and again. We hear a producer too. Is it Ellen talking to this cop also? And there are times where he basically, and this other cop also basically admits to sort of like either knowing what's going on or saying like, oh yeah, that's very likely that could be true. But also sort of copping to there being other reasons why they wouldn't investigate. So it just sort of speaks to this other systemic issue of like either fear or like the same kind of retaliation that's basically getting people killed is also keeping cops from investigating the crimes that are getting people killed. I mean, that really is the definition of like a lawless place, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of things going on here, and one of them is just clearly the cops can't keep people safe. Like they can't be everywhere all the time. So if you talk to the cops, you get somebody in trouble who's dangerous, you're really kind of on your own. There's even this story about Seraphine supposedly kidnapping, in quotes, this guy who she thought stole her truck, right? Because she doesn't think the cops are going to be able to do anything about it. So there's that aspect to it. And then I think, again, the size of the job and sort of the socioeconomic issues within the reservation, I think you have to make decisions as a law enforcement officer about what you're going to do, right? You can't do it all. Even to all the things you can respond to, you can't take care of everything. So I think that you got those two things working against you. And then just the fact that you're such a small group, again, and getting sent like a lot of times, one guy in a car, like showing up to a place, You don't have any backup. Backup may be 45 minutes away. That's just got to change your calculus on those things. While that's not the focus of this story, it's sort of ever present.
It's ever present in the weirdest ways too, because it's like, even when there are more cops on the scene, the one cop isn't quite sure like who the other cop was. Yeah. And then Kevin, like when their cops are dealing with journalists, like sometimes they're like, we can't talk to you because this is an open case. And other times they tell them like, it seems like stuff they shouldn't be telling them. And other times they're asking the journalist for information like, where Evan is? So what did you think of those interactions?
Yeah, I thought a couple times like maybe these cops shouldn't be saying so much to Ellen and Connie. And not just like, the PR thing where in one of the interviews, it seemed like the cop implied that, some of these cases were more important than other ones. And I think it was just sort of in an artful way of saying something. But then when you have, she just stops by the police station and there's a cop just filling out his paperwork and starts asking questions and he just answers them.
Leaves the room, comes back, right. Leaves the room, comes back.
Comes back. She's got a microphone, right? Because she's got the big shotgun microphone with her. It isn't like a...
It's not a lav.
It's not a yeah, it's not a bug, in the phone. She's not like leaving her iPhone running on the table or something like that. But it speaks to the under-resourced nature of that police department. And yeah, I mean, Navajo Police Class 57 was really eye-opening, not just the geographic range of, you've got 8 or 10 officers on duty trying to cover an area the size of Ireland, with a lot of dirt roads and things like that, but also just the inability to like really just follow up on cases to do stuff like that. And their cases are running the gamut between assault and domestic violence and, robberies and stick-ups and just the things that, you really need to put some time into to solve. They just don't have the time.
Yeah.
Because there's no one to relieve them. I don't know. Maybe in some way, like these cops just really want to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there was the difference. One cop was just like, that's open. I can't tell you about that. And like, you know where he is? It's just like, well, I don't know. But if you could.
That was amazing. Yeah, like, what did he think Connie was going to say? Oh, I do. Let me tell you. Let me tell you where Evan is.
Do you know where he's at?
So are you saying that he's someone that you're interested in talking to or finding?
Yes. Do you know where he's at?
Is there a warrant out for his arrest?
I'm not going to discuss that. Can you give me a location of where he's at and the phone number?
I mean, I obviously can't.
Oh, and that phone call with the father, with Evan's father, when the producer called the dad. How do you know his name? Are you a cop? I'm like, this is incredible. Like, this really speaks to the level of mistrust. It speaks to just sort of like what everyone's interactions with everyone else in this community have been like, that you could get a call from a person and tell them all sorts of stuff and then realize you don't know who you're speaking with. Like, this is really a place where you just get the sense that anything could happen at any time. And we hear that over and over and over again. I mean, this is a place where there may have been a situation where there were 2 skulls and not 1 skull. This is a place where in this one man's house, we hear about multiple shootings. We hear about all these different violent behaviors. And then we also hear he's a good guy. Like this guy who has this house where all of these things are happening. It just seems like the most chaotic place. And so like you get this phone call and like no one knows who someone's first name is. You know
Melvin's
what I mean?
House, they should have like a police substation at Melvin's house.
No kidding.
Yeah. What about the lady whose like hobby it is to help people?
And how crazy is that like you've got a woman who's like got a full-time gig and her side hustle is running canine searches for the families of missing people because there are just that many to keep you busy. And that there isn't, there's no one else with that resource. They've got, dogs that can go out and do that kind of thing. That's nuts.
Well, it's like, Kevin, how when we find out that Kristina is missing and Connie goes to look it up and there's not even a story in the Navajo Nation paper. Mm-hmm. The only thing she can find is a Facebook post that's been put up by her sister Denise. And that is literally the only way they were getting information out about this missing person.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for less. And for a limited time, new customers receive their second month free when they sign up and use promo code MONTHFREE by May 31st. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up and call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
You can live out your MasterChef dreams when you find a professional on Angie to tackle your dream kitchen remodel. Connect with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done well. Visit Angie.com. You can do this when you Angie that.
Why are smart businesses graduating to NetSuite by Oracle? Because NetSuite eliminates the expense of multiple business systems by consolidating your operations together into one. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR into one platform and one source of truth. NetSuite reduces IT costs because it lives in the cloud with no hardware required, so you can access it from anywhere. You cut the cost and headaches of maintaining multiple systems because you've got one unified business management suite. You improve efficiency by bringing all your major business processes into one platform, slashing manual tasks and errors. Over 37,000 companies have already made the move, so do the math. You'll see how you'll profit with NetSuite too. But it gets better. Now through April 15th, NetSuite is offering a one-of-a-kind flexible financing program. Just head to netsuite.com/podcast25 for more information. That's netsuite.com/podcast25.
Okay, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out Stolen, Trouble in Sweetwater, the final season of Stolen from Spotify. Laura Bricker, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for this podcast?
Yeah, this is thumbs up. I love Connie Walker's reporting style. She is very, at first you think understated because she's so calm when she goes out to interview people, but she has such a knack for making people feel comfortable speaking to her. She gets incredible information out of her interview subjects. There's just a nuance to her storytelling that really brings heart to everything that she reports on. And I think, continuing her prior reporting on missing and murdered Indigenous women, this one for me was particularly interesting because it was in the Navajo Nation. And listeners will remember I got very fired up about that documentary we watched because it was so heartbreaking watching them try to get enough police to respond to the calls out in this area. And we hear in this story, very similar account of the police not being able to keep up with what's happening. So I think this is very worth listening to. Another great podcast from Connie Walker.
Toya Ball, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for this season of Stolen?
Yeah, I feel like I'm just going to say the same stuff Laura did, but in different words.
Good.
Exactly.
They didn't like my words.
No one should listen to women's words. Best words.
That's what men do in meetings, so you may as well do it here.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I said I didn't talk over her, but there's the next one we do. Connie makes very distinctive podcasts. They're not I guess they don't feel hurried, but they're not boring. She kind of takes her time to tell her story, but you're just sort of constantly engaged. She clearly has a ton of empathy for people, which she's able to get across in the podcast. And she really centers sort of the human aspects of these stories, which for whatever reason seems to be hard to do. Most people can't do it certainly as well as she does. And then again, the reporting is excellent. The stories are important. She's one of that, I guess it's getting to be a larger handful, but a handful of, podcast people who, when she's got something that comes out, you're really psyched because it's going to be great. And this kind of continues in that. So it's a big thumbs up.
Kevin Flynn.
I'm also a thumbs up. We certainly don't want to think of this as a swan song for Connie Walker because Stolen is coming to an end. And, I know that this has been her life's work covering this beat and bringing attention to this issue. And so I'm sure she's going to find some place to tell these stories again, maybe in podcast form, maybe, in video, documentary, something like that. She's just too good to not, have her part of the canon. She is somebody whose name is completely associated with a certain style of podcast, a certain voice, and a certain quality. And those are people like Dan Taberski, Madeline Barron, Leah Satilli, all these people, these high-end people that you just love, and they bring quality stuff. She is definitely among the best. Her podcast may be variations on the same theme, but they're all very distinctive. And I mean, how much more different can you get from like Surviving St. Michael's to Finding Cleo to this, right? So she does it very well. She's solid. I like what Toby says, where it doesn't feel rushed. You get some really good stuff. You know, the pace is not fast, but it's steady, and you continue on with the story. Then all of a sudden, like, something big will happen, and you'll be like, wow. It's a jolt because you weren't, like, revving up to that. And all of a sudden, it just came out of nowhere, because sometimes that's just how journalism works. Anyway, it's a long way of saying that this is a very good podcast. She's great. I definitely recommend it and can't wait to hear how she pull all this together. And I will just say, for a lot of us, if it were not for Connie Walker, the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women and people would just not be something front of mind for us. She did that. She brought that to the true crime community, and other journalists are doing it as well. But in this community, the true crime podcast community, it's all thanks to her, and it's an issue that continues to gain much needed momentum and recognition. So congratulations to Connie.
So the word that I would use to describe the style that you were both sort of talking about is hypnotic. When you say slow but not boring, it's a style that manages to be both purposefully paced but also suspenseful. The one thing that I want to add, I mean, I agree with everything that you guys said, is that Serial Season 1 attempted this experiment of real-time reporting, which, had people sort of on the edge of their seats. But ultimately, even as entertaining and groundbreaking as it was at the time, and for everything it did for that case and for podcasting in general, ultimately that experiment ended up resulting in some really irresponsible journalism in terms of what it didn't do for that story, the avenues it didn't explore, like the things it didn't look at, right? The blind spots that it cultivated and sort of amplified for that reporting team. So what I love about what Connie Walker does is she gives you that experience. She gives you the real-time reporting journey, the ride-along journey that you're in the car with her while she's looking journey, without doing all of the stuff that is going to take you down the road of irresponsibility, take you down the road of at the end feeling like, oh shit, like this really got fucked up. In 5 years, you're going to look back on it and be like, wow, that's actually a real mess. Like, because the production is just so beautifully designed that way. Like, this was not made last week, but it sounds like it was made last week. It sounds like she just discovered this and was like, oh shit. And so as a result, we feel like we are discovering it with her. And that is like the magic that Serial Season 1 brought, that Connie brings with these stories that makes them so compelling, because she understands, and she said this in a panel that I did with her years ago, she understands that to make people care, you have to make a fucking entertaining podcast. And that's what she's doing. And she is fantastic at it. So yeah, big thumbs up for me for this season of Stolen. And it might be the final season of Stolen because Spotify canceled it. But goddamn it better not be the final season of the things that Connie Walker makes. And I bet it won't be. Now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast, a little something I like to call the Crime of
the Week.
They may be Russian, but they won't be Russian. Leaders in Chechnya are banning music that is too fast or too slow. The government says all songs written or performed in their republic must be between 80 and 116 beats per minute. That's much slower than Western dance music, which the government is trying to suppress. The culture minister says that music must, quote, conform to the Chechen mentality. In case you're wondering, 80 beats a minute is the same tempo as tunes like It Must Have Been Love, Ain't No Sunshine, We Will Rock You, and Rosanna. And 116 beats per minute is no faster than the songs Have You Ever Seen the Rain, Kokomo, and Ice Ice Baby.
You said, how many of those?
Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I wanna take
Hard
ya.
to dance fast to that, right?
100%.
Right.
But there must be a way for music-loving Chechens to dance to something faster than Neil Sedaka's Put Your Head on My Shoulder. We propose... We propose airdropping Kevin Bacon to defy those town elders and hold a prom in the grain mill. So, panel, the beat goes on. What other law about music will the government make? Laura Bricker, what do you think?
No listening to music while driving your car. We don't want any like dancing in the car while you're driving because that might be too wild.
Tell me about what do you think is the next law about music the Chechen government is going to make?
No cowbell.
What do you think, Kevin?
No, white boy, you may not play that funky music.
All right. Well, Laura Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you on social media and tell you what your rules for music should be, how can they find you there?
They can find me at Laura Bricker on Twitter and Instagram.
And Toby Ball, folks want a repeat of your Exeter live show performance, which, by the way, was full of cowbell. How can they find you on social media?
At Toby Ball NH.
Kevin Flynn, how can you be found?
I'm at Kevin P. Flynn.
And if you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram or anywhere else, you can find me at Reb Lavoie. Follow the show everywhere at Crime Writers On. You can follow us on YouTube as well. And I encourage you to join our incredible community in our official Crime Writers On Facebook discussion group. We have a regular old Facebook page. You can just find us there, hit join the group in our pinned post. I'll let you in if you seem nice. Get episodes early and ad-free at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. You'll also get the Crime Writers On After Show, Married with Podcast, Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast, and Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcasts. Our theme song was composed and performed by Ty Gibbons. Our line editor is the fantastic Livy Burdett. The executive producer of this program is Kevin Flynn. This show was recorded in the Treehouse Yoga Studio above the Mockingbird Cafe in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi studio, otherwise known as Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement, where we also take about 2 hours to respond to emergencies. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you
later.
Among
the guests are the aforementioned Jeff Brumley. And who else?
That is a good question, Kevin. Because it's not...
Let's just make up some guests.
Yeah.
Sarah Koenig.
Jesus Christ. Mao. And...
that Jesus H. Christ?
Bono.
Yep. Bono. And Groucho Marx.
Partners in Crime Media.
You can start your day off right when you find a professional on Angie to get your plumbing right first. Connect with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done well. Visit Angie.com. You can do this when you Angie that.